What's up gamers, I'm Sparkus and today I come to you with another GAGAS review and my mission to reflect on every aspect of the game so you can make the right decision and see if this is a game for you to buy or to skip. Well, today we're taking a closer look at Resident Evil 7, the newest game of a series that is commonly known as the mother of all survival horror games. But the last couple of main games of Resident Evil have turned more and more away from the survival aspect of the game and more towards action. That went on until Resident Evil 6 received fairly poor reception by gamers and critics alike. Now, it has been 5 years since Resident Evil 6, so Capcom had time to listen to their fans and what they really want. That is easier said than done. So the question that comes to mind is, did Capcom manage to focus more on survival horror? So we once more get the shit scared out of us. Let's find out in this GAGAS review. Oh, and if you like this video, hey, subscribe to the channel because seriously, 2017 is going to be an amazing year on this channel. Graphics. Okay, here we have to talk about two things, the technical side and the game world side. Because on the technical side, the game could not impress me whatsoever. That is because, well, the textures are barely current gen worthy, but what's even worse is that the textures often take a second or two to load. I tested the game on my PS4 Pro, so don't expect something better on other systems. Because it's honestly also a bit embarrassing since the textures are not that great and the map is not that big, and it is disturbing to notice the bad textures or when it switches to the rendered, good textures. It is really noticeable and it interrupts the illusion that the game normally creates. Okay, now that we have covered all the bad things about the game, let's talk about the good stuff. And for starters, it's the really great level design that we can find here in the game. It is really nice to see how the game developers focused on pretty much every detail in this condensed world. It is really believable and it is fun if the textures are loaded to walk around the game world and to discover it. What we have here is clearly quality over quantity. This is top-notch game design, really great. Well done, Capcom. Now, one more minor issue with the graphics is the fairly poor lip sync. I can only imagine how bad it is with other languages because it's already pretty bad with English. And if you throw in the argument that this is a Japanese game, yeah, believe me, it's worse in Japanese. Alright, while we're at the topic, let's look at audio. And here the game is making a really great job.
Eat it. It's good.
Dumb some bitch wasn't no good if it hit him.
Yes. Shit, he's not eating it, Jack. He's not eating it.
Get the hell up, Marguerite.
Take that for him.
Get the hell out of here.
You're a son of a bitch.
Fuck me. I was an anchor, you know?
Weekend sub, Pete. Not anchor.
What's that?
Nothing.
Hey, we gotta get the fuck out of here.
Now, first, you need to tell me what you're doing out here alone in the middle of the night.
Job. Seriously guys, if you play this game, you have to play it right. Play when it's dark, or at least in a dark room, and use surround sound or some headphones that manage to simulate surround sound. You can actually achieve that already with some in-ear headphones. Now, if you do that, the atmosphere of the game is amazing. First, you got the voices, which do a pretty good job, but they just get sometimes disturbed by that mediocre lip syncing. Second, you get these amazing sound effects of squeaking doors, crackling boards, and this fucking old house that just can't stop scaring the shit out of you. Seriously guys, it happened to me on a number of occasions where I was just waiting and looking around like a little scared girl, hoping that nothing creeps up on me from behind. Oh, and then there is also the music. Well, most of the time, there is none, because, well, you're sneaking around and it would make sense. But when it's there, your heartbeat goes up immediately and you're freaking out, especially when you don't see anything dangerous, because then you're just like, what the fuck's going on? Again, audio is just great and it really adds to the atmosphere. Alright, let's talk about gameplay, and man, this title really made a change. In many ways, you can hardly recognize that this is a Resident Evil, not only because of the story. Most notably, it's now a first-person game, well, mostly for the VR mode on the PlayStation, but it brings back the limited camera view from the good old days of Resident Evil. And with the new perspective, it is really, really great to see that the game focuses much more on stealth and survival horror. Sure, the game turns more to action the further you progress through the game, but that is not really a bad thing. Often I began to feel more like the hunter than the hunted, only to be reminded again that I'm the hunted in the next scene. Great stuff. And it gets better. Or, well, worse. Because after the first playthrough that took me about 8 joyful and frightening hours, you can choose the Madhouse difficulty. And man, that's the real shit. Less save spots, less items to find, and they are also in different locations. The same goes for enemies that are not also again in the same locations as they were before, and you have less health. Sure, the story and the occasional jump scare aren't going to be that effective anymore in your second playthrough, but the core feeling that the game manages to create pretty well, to be afraid to get attacked and die around the next corner, that intensifies even more with the new difficulty. And that brings us to amusement. And hell, this game gives you a lot of what the fuck moments. Not only story-wise, but I'm gonna get to that. But also, the game manages to grab the player right where it wants to and to tear him or her down into the darkness of fear. Simply, this game is close to being a perfect horror game. I had crap tons of fun playing Resident Evil 7, period. Just, about the amount of crap that came out of me playing the game for scary reasons. Alright, I'm exaggerating a bit because I'm not really getting scared by horror games or especially movies. Actually, I think they're mostly boring or not really engaging. But here, that was quite different and I enjoyed it really much. Seriously, there are only minor things that I would like to change. Well, personally, this is one great horror game right here. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Before we get to the verdict of the game, let's take a look at the story. And as always, if you don't like to hear anything about that, although I try not to spoil the story in any way, you can skip to the time displayed right now or use the link in the description. Alright, so Ethan, the protagonist, gets a message from his wife who disappeared 3 years ago. So he picks up the trail and ends up in the house of the Baker family deep in the woods of Louisiana. Now, the Bakers are some really crazy bastards that are infected with some form of a virus of the Resident Evil virus. So basically, you barely arrive there and you look for your wife, and Ethan almost instantly has to try and find a way to get the fuck out of there. Well, and that's basically it. Well, not so much, because for 95% of the time you're thinking, what the fuck's going on? Now, I don't want to spoil anything. Let's just say that we get some answers to what is going on and why the Bakers turned batshit crazy. Overall, the story is above average, if not good, and manages to enhance the overall atmosphere. It's really fitting. I like it. Okay, good. It's time to get to the verdict and to answer the question, did Capcom manage to listen to the complaints of their fans and to focus more on survival horror so we can get the shit scared out of us? And the straightforward answer is, oh yes, they did. This game does not leave much to be desired. Well, in terms of a horror game, of course. This is a great game that I can recommend to pretty much anyone to play. So if you like true survival horror, this is the game for you. Sure, there are some jump scares and sometimes they aren't even that scary, but the focus is clearly on survival horror. So if you like to play a game that gives you a condensed experience, and if you don't mind to think, what the fuck's going on for most of the time, well, that's the game for you. And if you think you might like this game, since this is a horror game and you would like to test it out, just do it. You are very likely to like it. The same goes if you think that the game should be more action-oriented because you are looking forward for more action. Because, for one, the game turns to action the more you progress through the story, and two, there's also the easy difficulty for a more action-like playthrough, even though I think with that you are more ruining the game. Okay, there are two main reasons on why you should wait before you buy the game. One is that the story takes about 8 hours, 10 max really, and there are already speedruns that go under 1.5 hours. And there's nothing else really there except for the story. Yeah, there is the Madhouse difficulty that spices up the new playthrough, but what then? Well, that really depends on you, what it's worth to you to have a condensed gaming experience for 8 hours. If it's $60, $50, $20, or only $5. That is something only you can decide. But there is also a second reason on why to wait, and that is the stupid and fucked up DLC policy of Capcom. Damn it, it really seems that the Japanese companies now are making the mistakes that the Western companies were doing for the last 5 years, and they're starting to get away from that. Alright, those fuckers from Capcom have already released content out today, and more DLC are coming out in February. This was clearly cut out from the game, and that also seems to apply to the DLC coming out later this year. For that, Capcom, you get an honest, and that comes deeply, deeply from my heart, fuck you, you corporate money-grabbing pricks. Alright, when should you skip the game? Well, we have a story and atmospheric-driven single-player game. If you look for co-op, multiplayer, open-world, RPGs, yeah, look the other way, man. If you like to get tons of playtime for your money, or if you expect a technical and graphical masterpiece, stick to other games as well. That being said, even if you see yourself on the skip it side and also disagree with the DLC policy, which I do as well, I can still say with a clear conscience that you should keep an eye on Resident Evil 7 and buy it when it's on a sale or very cheap in a few years, or maybe rent it for a weekend, because I'm telling you, it's going to be a really, really great weekend. Hey, make your weekends great again. So yeah, that was my GAGAS review on Resident Evil 7. I hope you liked it and that it helped you to decide if this is a game for you or not. Make sure to subscribe to stay up to date with game-breaking news and GAGAS review. Please press the like button down below and tell me in the comments what do you think about the Capcom DLC policy and that they are releasing multiple paid DLC in the first month. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you around the internet. Now, if you would excuse me, I need to change my adult diaper.